Welcome to LollieTasking with ADHD. I am your host, Dr. Lollie, a multi-passionate mom of three, a physician, and an ADHD life coach because, like most of you amazing women listening, I have ADHD. Join me as we chat about how ADHD affects our lives and learn strategies to help us all thrive, not just survive, with ADHD so we can live the life we want while accomplishing all our goals. Let's get started. Hello, LollieTaskers. Welcome to LollieTasking with ADHD. Again, I'm Dr. Lollie, a physician, an ADHD trained life coach for my easily distracted women who are so tired of being stuck in stagnant state of busyness and ready to create productive momentum to accomplish all their goals with ease, without sacrificing any time from their family. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Before we get started today, I want to give a shout out to Anna Brazel. Anna Brazel left a review for us and she said, "Great episode, Dr. Day. Sleep issues associated with ADHD are not addressed often enough. You brought up some great points about the complications surrounding ADHD and sleep. Very informative as always." Thank you so much, Anna. I'm so happy you left that review for us. And that's one of the things I want to talk about on our shows, things that are not typically spoken about. I believe there are a lot of things you can Google, but I want to talk about the things that affect us as professional women. So I am so happy that you found this valuable and you were able to use it and you found it informative. Thank you, Anna. If you love this episode, ladies, I encourage you to like, review, share with friends so more people can listen to it. And just maybe I will be giving you a shout out on our next episode. All right. So I had a conversation with a friend about yesterday, and she was grieving a loss. And as she was talking, she was frustrated, and she said, "I'm depressed." Well, she had real grief, right? And I said, "You're not depressed. You're having a normal life reaction to what has been handed to you. It is okay to grieve. It would take a while, but you have to choose joy, right?" And I kept telling her, you have to choose joy. Because if you don't, you're going to go back and then you're going to be unmotivated and then you're not going to move forward. You don't have to do it now, but just know your end goal is choosing joy. Joy is an action. So this got me thinking about ADHD and depression. A lot of times you've heard, oh, depression is a comorbidity of ADHD, or you've heard, ADHD causes depression. And sometimes you're like, which is it? Were you depressed and now you have ADHD symptoms? Or do you have ADHD and now you have depression? Or do you have both, right? Is it chicken or the egg? Or is it the egg and chicken? So that's how I wanted to talk about this specifically today. So let's get started. Let's even talk about what is depression, right? So, according to the American Psychiatric Association, they define depression, which generally said depression, but it's actually major depressive disorder. They define it as a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, how you think, and how you act. Okay? Depression can cause feelings of sadness or a loss of interest in activities you enjoy. It can also lead to variety of emotions, physical problems, and it can also decrease your ability to function or work at home. So it's that feeling of hopelessness. And I remember in medical school when we were learning about depression and how to see if somebody has depression, there was this mnemonic we used to use. It's called SIG ECAPS. I don't know why I'm so hyper today. It's called SIG ECAPS, okay? So number one, if you want to know if you're depressed or have depressive symptoms, right? Because to be categorized as major depressive disorder, you have to be depressed for about 2 weeks. Like you have to have this feeling of hopelessness for about 2 weeks straight. So if you feel like you're having sleep issue, the S and C ECAPS, sleep disturbances. It could be insomnia or you're sleeping your day away. Interest decrease, right? Um, you just don't feel like doing the things you used to enjoy. Guilt or feeling of worthlessness, right? Hashtag ADHD, a lot of us feel that when we've dropped the ball or when things are not going the way it's supposed to be, right? Energy. How is your energy? Is your energy decreased? Do you feel like you're going at 2 miles an hour when typically you're like 100 miles an hour kind of person? Concentration. Are you able to focus on things that matter to you? Are you able to focus on accomplishing what you need to accomplish, right? Again, hashtag ADHD. These are some symptoms we see as well. Appetite. Are you losing appetite, right? You just don't feel like eating. And some people, when they're depressed, they just don't eat at all. They don't have any appetite to eat. And some people, they overeat. So you have drastic weight changes. Like, well, maybe not drastic, but some people will gain weight and some people will lose weight. Either one, right? Sakamoto agitation, like you're fidgety, you can't sit still, you're in constant motion. Does that sound like ADHD? Absolutely. The last one, which is way concerning, is suicidal ideation. So, this is one thing that doesn't necessarily go with ADHD unless you have depression with ADHD. Are you suicidal? Do you feel like giving up? Do you feel like this life is not for you anymore, right? So, if you have any of those symptoms, I advise you to speak to somebody right now. I advise you to call somebody. I advise you to talk to your doctor, talk to somebody right now. And I'm going to put a number for depression hotline in the show notes. That way, even if you don't have anybody close to you that you feel like you could talk to, you can at least call that hotline and get the help you need. Okay? So, back to what I was talking about. As you can see, these symptoms look just like ADHD, at least a lot of them. So, it's no surprise that if you're depressed, it unmasks maybe an ADHD that you've had, or it makes your ADHD symptoms worse. Because some of us do very well with our ADHD, and all of a sudden you lose a partner, or you have a major life crisis in your life, and all of a sudden your ADHD symptoms is now unbearable and unmanageable. Maybe before you didn't need medicine or you didn't need coaching, and now you're looking for medicine to help you. I always say though, if you feel like your ADHD or your depression, excuse me, is a result of your ADHD, yes, get help. You may need both an antidepressant and an ADHD stimulant medication, but you have to deal with the source, okay? And just like ADHD, depression is also a neurochemical disorder. What that means is like, so with ADHD, it's because we don't have enough dopamine in our synapses. So with depression, it's because you don't have enough serotonin in your synapses, right? So all this can be managed medically. And what the research has showed is that when you're depressed, typically you have enough, and some of those serotonins are just not staying. So a lot of times, one of the major medicines they actually use to treat depressions are something called SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it prevents that serotonin for going for basically reattaching. So you have more serotonin in your bloodstream, and that way you can be happy. Okay. So when I was like talking about this with my friend, I was talking about depression and ADHD, and she asked like, okay, so does ADHD cause depression? Like, I want to know. Or are you prone to ADHD if you have depression? So we say ADHD and depression are comorbid condition. And what that means that they're associated with each other, but it doesn't necessarily mean it causes it. It's not a causation, right? But because, as I told you earlier, if you look at all the symptoms, those symptoms are so similar you can see why people with ADHD may have some depressive symptoms, especially if their ADHD is not managed appropriately, right? And it's no surprise, depression is nearly 4 times likely in adults with ADHD. And about 30% of people who have ADHD would have experienced some kind of depressive episode in their lifetime. Even more sobering and concerning for me is the statistics that says that if you have hyperactivity or impulsivity, you are more likely to have increased risk of suicidal ideation and follow through with it, right? Because we're impulsive. And because about 25% of adults who have ADHD, untreated ADHD, have depression, it's very, very important that we seek the help when we need it. You can imagine when you have constant feeling of incapability, low self-worth, disappointment and frustration in yourself because you can't get things done, you can't meet the deadline, you can't focus, you feel like you're not productive, and people keep telling you you're lazy, right? No wonder why we get depressed. But I will discuss what are some strategies I have used in my life and may be able to help you as well. I always say though, the only way to improve this is to treat the underlying cause first. If you're grieving, see a counselor, see a therapist. There's a proper way to grieve. In this case, in ADHD, treat ADHD alongside or first. I actually recommend my clients, if you come to me and I feel like you have the pressure, I recommend having a co-management. You have a mental health specialist that can help you with your depression, or counselor that can help you with some cognitive behavioral therapy or even medication from a psychiatrist, and then also help your ADHD at the same time. Okay? People with ADHD, what even make it worse is that we're prone to emotional dysregulation. We can and often experience emotions very intensive than most of our non-ADHD people, right? And then we take longer to soothe. Like there was an issue that happened yesterday and it really shouldn't have been a big deal. And I was so sad about it that I'm sure even the person that caused it didn't even think anything about it and just went to bed. Okay? So I just want to have you think about this kind of things when you say, okay, I'm depressed. Yes, you're depressed, but do you have ADHD as well? I'm not saying everybody who has ADHD has depression, but if you know you have ADHD and you're depressed, this may be the time where you may need to, in addition to helping with your mental state, also help with your ADHD. All right, so I've kind of talked about that. I've kind of beaten a dead horse, I feel, right? So, how do we treat it? Coaching, mental health or counseling, therapy, and medication. At the end of the day, you have to discuss with your physician because they know you better. It is not okay just to see a mental health or a psychiatrist and also see another doctor for ADHD, right? Without telling each other because some of these medications may actually interact with each other. However, I want to kind of discuss some important things that may help you before or while trying to go through this and try to figure out, is it my ADHD or is it my depression? One thing I have learned in this life is you have to own your own story. You have to have the power to choose the story that you write by rewarding your phrases and rewarding the outcome that you will have. Marching to your own tune. What does this mean? Are you telling yourself that because of your ADHD, you're never going to amount to anything? Or have you believed the false story that because of your ADHD, you just can't be a good mother or because of your ADHD, balls are going to be dropped, or because of your ADHD, you're going to be forgetful, or because of your ADHD, you just can't be like everybody else. So, what's the point? Once you believe that, you have believed the biggest lie in this world. And I tell you this because I read a phrase the other day where, and I have to paraphrase, I don't remember how it is. She said something about, and I'm going to give you a shout out to Barry. In her Facebook post, she mentioned something about, you know, we tend to focus on the one or two people that don't believe in us or has a false narrative about us instead of thinking about the other 5 to 6 billion people in this world who actually supports us. And I replied to her, I was like, even worse, that one person that we believe may end up being us, right? If you believe negativity about yourself, if you believe a negative story about yourself, if someone else comes to you with that negative story, guess what? You are going to believe it. So, one of the biggest and hardest things you can do to yourself is rephrase the story that you write about yourself. That's why in our program, the number one thing we even do before anything, I call it discovering your ADHD. Being self aware of your ADHD and writing your own ADHD story. Your ADHD story not dependent on what the world says about you, not dependent on anything about you, not dependent on anything negative that the world may have said about you and your ADHD. I chose to combat my ADHD from a positive standpoint. Because guess what? One thing I do know about ADHD, even if you're not depressed, when I'm sad, right, or I'm having a bad day, my ADHD symptoms are horrible. So I don't like to sit in sadness. I sit in awareness, right? I grieve, things happen, but I try to give myself a finite time in that moment because I don't want to be that person who, again, is not productive because I have let my sadness or my grieving consume me. Again, let me reiterate it is important to grieve sometimes. It is important to allow your emotions to take space, right? However, it is also important to have joy at the end of that story. To realize that whatever it is that is going on with you, while it may not be perfect, there's joy at the end of your story. Okay? Another thing I want you to realize after writing your own story is we are social beings. We require validation from people who care about us. So it is very important to surround yourself with people with positive energy and also realizing that not everyone is for you. Not everyone is for you, and it's okay. And you're not for everyone, and that is also okay. Okay? You have to be around people who appreciate your ADHD and understand your ADHD. So I talk about the importance of being in a community of women who understand what ADHD is about. We don't use ADHD as an excuse. However, we thrive in spite of our ADHD. And when I was starting my coaching program, and that's why I thought it was very, very important to have a group coaching session. And now I have a membership where you can see other people who are just like you going through what you're going through. Other people who are just like you, who you can say, you know what, I am feeling some kind of way, and they can validate that you're not going crazy. Other people who are just like you, who have ADHD but are also killing it, not because they're better than you, but because they have owned their own story and they are leaving and they have decided to thrive. They went from discovering their ADHD to living with their ADHD and to thriving with their ADHD. It doesn't mean you get rid of everybody in your life. Oh no. But I believe you choose to surround yourself with who you choose to surround yourself with in the situation that you need and in a situation that may be necessary for you. Okay? So I want you to really, really think about it. Are you around people who believe that your ADHD is a lie? Are you around people who believe that you're using your ADHD as a crutch? Mind you, in our group, we don't use ADHD as our crutch. We believe we can thrive in it, but we also know and have accepted the fact that it is hard. And you cannot cure ADHD. There's no cure for it. However, you can manage your ADHD. And when you manage your ADHD appropriately, the sky's the limit. Then you can be the goats of whatever industry you're in. You know, I harp about Simone Biles all the time. I harp about Michael Phelps all the time. I harp about Will Smith all the time. I harp about Einstein all the time. These are people who either we think had or either we think had ADHD or actually confirm they do have ADHD, and they're the top in their fields. One thing we know with ADHD is that once we get it, we could hyper focus as a mug and kill it in whatever we're doing. But we need to focus on that superpower and stop focusing on the kryptonite. Stop focusing on the obstacle. However, when all people tell you about is the obstacles around you, guess what? You are going to focus on the obstacles. Another thing I want you to think about is yes, you have ADHD. You have resilience woven into your DNA. That's one of the characteristics of ADHD. You're resilient. So I want you to fight for you the way you fight for others. Do not give up on yourself. If you are depressed, seek help. Seek the necessary help. See a mental health specialist. See a counselor. See a psychiatrist. See somebody. Don't be that percentage of ADHD who have suicidal ideation and go through with it because of your impulsivity. Okay? However, while you're seeking that, you also need to seek help with your ADHD. Because the combination of doing both is how you win. I also want you to choose joy. Stop suffering in silence. You need to have a reason to go back to the sweet little girl you used to be. Remember that sweet little girl that used to smile and laugh and had no worry in the world? Be that girl again. Choosing joy is intentional because, like I said earlier, you write your story. And in your story, you're going to have a happy ending. You know why you're going to have a happy ending? Because you're the author of your story. You write your own story. And you have to intentionally choose joy. Okay? And you're like, oh, Dr. Lawler, it's not so easy just to choose joy. How do I choose joy? Okay. Change your story. Change your life. Your thoughts that you have about yourself is one of the most important things. You have to stop the disempowering comments about yourself. The word you use is so powerful. In our Yoruba language, and where my family is from, we talk about the power of the tongue. Even the Bible talks about the power of the tongue. The tongue is so powerful. But before you usher that word out of your tongue, it started with a thought in your head. So you need to change your thoughts, which changes your words, which changes your life. Stop thinking I'm so dumb. I let that boy use me or whatever. It's okay to say, you know what, I was taken advantage of because of my positive, because I believe too much in people. Now I know where my weakness is. I'm going to work on this. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm always so forgetful, oh my gosh, and beating yourself up, say, okay, I need to find some ADHD strategies that can help me remember the next time. At least help me remember the most important things. Because let's face it, we don't necessarily need to remember everything. We just need to remember the things that matter, right? And the reason why we forget is we have so much in our brain. Our brain is in constant motion and it's constant thinking. So our brain needs to focus on something. So if we don't have strategies to help us focus, of course we forget. Strategies is the easiest part of ADHD. I could teach you strategies, but you have to be able to realize that in order to even go through with that strategy, you have to believe in yourself. The biggest enemy you can have is yourself. Once you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in anything, and then nothing is going to go through, right? I can preach from today till tomorrow. I could coach from today till tomorrow. If you don't believe it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. That's why in our community, yes, I give you strategies, but I also focus a lot on your mindset. We work on your mindset daily. We work on your mindset with each course. Okay? Choosing to make joy a habit requires you to turn your focus sometimes outwardly. Because one thing I know we're good at is while we may not appreciate ourselves and we may not even want to help ourselves, we're social justice warrior. We want to help other people, and helping other people makes us happy. So sometimes you may need to focus outwardly and intentionally help other people get that happiness and build on that happiness for yourself. It also will allow you to shift your problems away from you. It doesn't mean ignoring it. I don't believe in ignoring your problem. You should never ignore your problem. That's one of the worst things you can do because ignoring your problem just makes your problem worse and it makes your depression worse. But you can shift your attention away from your problems, your difficulties, and yourself and start to connect with your feelings and help people. The last thing I want to leave you with that has helped me a lot in choosing joy is also having daily gratitude. Every day when I wake up, when I pray in the morning, my prayer in the morning is not asking. Well, I do ask still, let's not lie, but I start with gratitude. And I think of 2 or 3 things that God did for me yesterday that is unique. And I thank Him for it. Even in the midst of negativity, I still find a way to be like, you know what? Thank you, God, for opening my eyes and seeing that so and so is not to be trusted. Right? But you have to do that every day. In you choosing gratitude, it's easier to choose joy. So we're almost to our half-hour mark, and I don't want to be here too long because I try to keep this simple and sure when it's just me talking, because who wants to listen to me talk for an hour, right? I know you do. But I am actually having a vision and goal planning session next year. Next year? No, next weekend. And in our session, we talk about how to create goals and vision for our ADHD. I'm going to leave a link in our show notes where you can register. And if you're hearing this after, the link may not work, or I may have another link on there. I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do. But either way, if you feel like you want to learn how to choose joy or create a vision and goal for yourself, go ahead and just contact me. You can find me on Instagram at LollieTasking, like I always say, or you can send me a DM or an email in our contact in the show notes. Okay? So, that being said, I always love quotes. You guys know I love quotes. And the quote I have today says, sometimes when I say I'm okay, I want someone to look me in the eyes, hug me tight and say, I know you're not. So, for you lovely, amazing ladies, if you're going through depression or worried because of your ADHD, I just want to give you the tightest hug. Just close your eyes. If you're driving, don't close your eyes, please. But wherever you are, just close your eyes and picture me giving you a hug. And I'm telling you, it's okay that you're not okay. And us appreciating and knowing that we're not okay, we could find a solution. And join me in the Accomplish with Ease network where we work on solutions together, okay? All right, and that's it for today, LollieTaskers. So, just to recap on today's episode, we talked about the connection between ADHD and depression and how having untreated ADHD can affect you, and it's important to seek help with medicine, through medicine, therapist, and coaching. Um, but you have to choose joy, right? So, what is that one thing you learned from this episode? What is that one thing you will work on? Write it down and create a plan. You can do this, okay? All right. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. I hope you've had an amazing, intentional week ahead. I hope you will have an amazing, intentional week ahead. Don't be a stranger. If you have any questions or want to talk more about this topic more extensively, join our Facebook group to continue the conversation. The name of the group is Thrive in Spite of ADHD. The links will be in the show notes. Again, don't forget to follow us on IG at LollieTasker. That's LollieTasker. Or you can also email us at hello@LollieTasking.com. Again, don't forget to leave us a review. You may just get a shout out on our next or future episodes. Till next time, remember, you can do it too. With some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. Bye-bye. Thanks for hanging out with us on another episode of LollieTasking with ADHD. If you like what you've heard today, I would love for you to click the subscribe button, rate, and leave a great review, in addition to sharing with your friends. Your review allows visibility and also allows other amazing women to find this podcast. Also, if you have any questions or topics you would like for us to discuss, please contact me via direct message on Instagram at LollieTasker or email us at hello@LollieTasking.com. Till next time, this is LollieTasking with ADHD.